All right, I'm here with my best of 2024 video, going over 7 of my favorite games of 2024. I feel like this was a pretty good year for games. I played a lot of hours of games, but not a lot of games overall. Games this year were very long. I played a lot of these games for a very long time. And you know, some of these games might have been bloated. Some of them are a good, length at what they're at, but a lot of these games for a long time. So these games, remakes, good for the list. Updated ports, stuff like that. Remasters, no good for the list. I'm not going to include that. Like, I played the Apollo Justice trilogy this year, that port, and not going to count that. Those are great games, but that was another thing that took up a lot of time. That was like 90 hours of time replaying those games. So going into, I guess, the first one I'll put in. These are in slight order, but not, massive, not a gospel or anything kind of order. But first game, I gotta give a shout out to my man Astro Bot. Won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, but first of all, I love the Astro Bot character. I think he's great. I think he's cute. I think he's nice, and he's fun, and he's my friend, and that's all that really matters. But this is a great platformer, one of the best platformers. 3D platformers like this don't come out too often. I would say this is the best platformer since Mario Odyssey, but that's not saying a whole lot because there's not been a lot of 3D platformers since then. This is probably, I would say, the best non-Mario 3D platformer ever made. And when you include Mario, I would still say it's probably easily top 5 best 3D platformers. This game is excellent, very well designed, just a lot of fun. A very fun game. I got the platinum in it. It's a very fun game to go for the platinum in. And it's just a great experience start to finish. Very inventive levels and the different mechanics. I really don't feel like there's a bad level in the bunch. It has a good amount of challenge when needed, and collecting all the little bots and all the little guys is cute. It's like enough of references to like, oh, they're dressed like, characters, but they're not, doesn't say outright who they are. You can probably tell if you're a fan. It's not like, like, oh, look at this reference, look at this, I clapped because I know what that is, like that stuff. It's like, oh, that's cute, that's fun. And the level design, even if none of those references were there, the level design still shines so much. The music goes hard, it's great. They did a great job there. Visually, it's just very nice, very appealing. And like I said, Astro Bot, a wonderful character. Some of the level design is just very standout, though. Just a great platformer overall. Controls well, plays really well, and I just a huge fan of it. So shout out to Astro Bot. Number 6, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. So I really liked this game. So Yakuza Like a Dragon was my favorite game of the year. It came out 2020, and that's a pretty stacked year. I was just obsessed with that game. I think that game's fantastic. And I think this game is a huge step forward in a lot of the ways and a huge step back in a lot of ways. I think the story is weaker than the first game. But I think it's still good. I just think it starts to kind of peter off. I don't think it's quite as good as the first game. But it's still good. It's still interesting. The new Hawaii setting is awesome. You got a full new map that I'm sure we're going to see many, many, many times again for this new game. And I really like the setting. It's cool to have it finally, in America, or just in another setting that's not Japan, as much as obviously Japan is where the series I think should mainly stay. Having that, Hawaii setting is really, really cool as well. So I appreciated that a ton, just having that new setting. The characters are always great. The new characters are good. And the old characters from Like a Dragon, I really like kind of how they're going at it with the cast. And as far as that goes, really cool. And just the side content, incredible. The Animal Crossing Island Builder mode, awesome. It's like 15 to 20 hours to play through that campaign of that, and it's fun. I really liked it. I do think it was dumb that they completely halted the story for you to do 3 days of the Animal Crossing Island. So probably 10% of the Animal Crossing Island mode. I forget, Dondoki Island. That takes a long while out of the story. It probably takes you out of the story for like an hour to do that. And if you're not interested in that mode, you're probably like, oh, kill me. But as far as this goes, I liked it a ton. I had a blast playing through that mode. Just listening to podcasts while I'm building up my island. It's so ridiculous, so over the top. It's great. There's the Sujimon League. That's just like a Pokemon ripoff with weird freaks that you find on the street. That was a ton of fun. There's like a crazy taxi DoorDash mini game. That's a ton of fun. The side content's great. The map is great. Side quests are as fun as always. And I think the side quests, having them in a different country, I think adds a lot more, so they're not as samey as maybe old ones. But really liked this one a ton. I think my big complaint is everything feels like it's just a little bit too long. Some of the side quests, the dialogue, I'm like, all right, this is going on longer. I get the point. I get the point. We don't need to. I feel like you're repeating yourself here. Or, oh, this cutscene was maybe a little too long. I got the platinum in this one, so I played through everything. I played through the DLC post-game dungeon as well. That was a ton of fun. I really like the turn-based combat in this. It's simple. It's a huge step up. That's, I guess, one of the big step-ups from the first game is that it's simple, but it's still has a lot of depth to it and a lot of just interesting and fun stuff you can do. And it is a big step up from the original game, which is like their first time at really trying a JRPG turn-based like that. So liked this one a ton. Got the platinum. It took like 115 hours or something ridiculous, but had a blast with it all the way through. Definitely recommend it. One of the best values you can get in a game. And I do like the stuff with Kiryu a lot, bringing him back and having him in the story. And his part of the story I think is really good, where I think the Ichiban part of the story is not quite as good, but it's still pretty solid. Sega had a great year this year, and that's going to continue. Obviously an Atlas title, but Persona 3 Reload, one of my most wanted games for a long while now. Persona 3 is a great game, but it is just flawed and a bit dated. A lot of the mechanics are not as good as they could be, but what's there is still a good story with a good cast and everything, great music. So taking this game, just remaking it, modernizing it, obviously it's not quite as strong in the fact that, you still have the main tall dungeon Tartarus that you have to go through, and that's still procedurally generated. It's still not amazing, but everything's a lot faster and a lot more enjoyable to go through. The remastered music is excellent. It's just fantastic. Like, it's so good. And just everything, it looks really nice. This is just a great experience. And a lot of times, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, I think it's important to have context and go play, original game of something and then play the remake first, so you have context. I think you can fully enjoy it. But with this game, I don't know. There was never a definitive way to play this one, because you had the original, then you had FES, which had a lot of quality of life updates, but still wasn't perfect. You couldn't control party members in battle, which is a big deal. And then you had the portable version, which had the female protagonist, and it had the controllable party members, but you don't have a open map to explore. It's more of just like point and click, which isn't great. So this, aside from the female protagonist, has everything you could want out of the game, and I think that's what's awesome. And everything just feels fully realized. Some of the script is changed a bit in a way that just, I think, makes it a little better written and a little bit less of, a little bit less anime. Obviously, it's still very anime, but you know what I mean. So yeah, they did a great job with this one. I really feel like you don't need to, unless you want to actively go out and try that female protagonist route in the portable version. I really feel like you don't need to go back to the older games. Like, you have the definitive version. It has now that DLC of The Answer, which is the second campaign on FES. I haven't played I'd like to at some point play the DLC campaign for this and go back to it. I just, I wasn't crazy about The Answer on PS2, so I'd be interested to see how they changed things and if they made it better. I've not really heard too many people talk about it. I feel like that's just the curse of story DLC. No one really cares. But a wonderful remake. P Studio did a great job, and I kind of want to see Persona 4 in this style too. I mean, make the modern Personas. I mean, go back and let's see what the older Persona games could look like in this style. But obviously, they're not similar to 3, 4, and 5 in the way that they're set up and everything. So it'd be different. But the modern Personas, even if Golden I still think holds up really well. I don't think it needs to be redone like this one. But even if let's get them all up to the same standard, and let's see where things can go. But really thrilled with how this one turned out. Once again, though, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. 115 hours. This game took me like 70 hours to finish. Games are so long. They're so long. And this isn't the last of it. Games are long. And I would like to see some shorter games, please. they take a long time. And I know that's great. I mean, it's good value for money. You get a $70 game for 70 hours. You can play it. You can, a lot of these games you can already get Infinite Wealth and Persona 3 Reload on sale for like $40. You're getting great value for your money, but at the same time, it's like I'm someone who likes to play as many games as I can, and I really find it important. I want to finish as many games that I like that I can. It is, and I usually stick to one game at a time. One game in particular, I think it was to its detriment, but Sega had a great year. It's so weird though. They released this February 2nd of this year, which is it's a pretty good open time for a game like this. But then they released Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth the week before. It's like, guys, what are you doing? You're cannibalizing. I feel like there's a large overlap between your games, Sega. Like, even if, they're different, there's still, I think there's a large overlap between the fan bases. So you're going to drop a 100, hour game and a 70-hour game right next to each other. It seems a little bit foolish. But that's why I didn't get to Infinite Wealth till the summer. I have summers off from work, and I was like, finally, all of June is going to be this game, just devouring this game. So weird that they released it like that. Don't know what quite was up with that, but seemed to work out for them fine. I think both games sold pretty well, so it wasn't to its detriment. But speaking of detriment, a game I liked a ton, but I was so over it by the time it was done. Metaphor ReFantazio. I think this game's excellent. This is a great new IP from Atlas, turn-based. Once again, Sega just killing it, absolutely killing it here. But so long. It was like 80 hours took me to finish. A lot of good side content and stuff. But I feel like 10 to 12 hours before the game ends, they're like, all right, this is it. Prepare yourself. This is the final battle. And then it's not the final battle. You still got like 10 hours left. And I think I had like 5 sessions where I was like, all right, I think I'm going to sit down and just beat this tonight. And then it kept going. I'm like, all right, guys, let's kind of wrap this up. The final dungeon, not a spoiler, is not the final dungeon. There's still more fights. So it's a lengthy game. It's really good though. I think if it doesn't grab you, it didn't immediately grab me. Like I was like, I'm interested to see where this goes. But it grabbed me somewhere around, I would say, the second dungeon, and then kept me throughout the game. I don't think it's as strong as something as Persona 5, which I think is a game that'll grab you pretty instantly. And I think aside from a few arcs of that game that I think are a little bit slower than others, I think that game maintains its energy. And that's a game that, I mean, just story only will take you, if you play Royal, the story only will take you 110 hours. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm in for the ride. I'm really enjoying this. But this was a game, it took me like 2 months to finish. I think that might be part of it too. Playing after work or whenever I had free time. It took me like 2 months to finish, where I'm like barely playing any other games. And it's like, I just think I'm ready to be done with this. This has taken up so much time. So that might be tainting my view of the game a little bit. But I still really liked it. I think the art direction is really cool. I like the characters and the character design. The world is so awesome. Like the overall concept of the world, I think, is where this shines. I think the plot is good, and I think it's interesting. It's not always perfect, but I think that it is very intriguing and very interesting and very unique. And I appreciate the world building. I really like that as well. This is one of those games where it's like, I feel like this and Final Fantasy VII are like kind of like the coolest worlds in RPGs, just as far as the lore goes, as far as just the different kind of factions, different kind of groups. I think there's a lot interesting here, and I think the subject matter is interesting. If Persona let me use my worthless psychology degree for something, this let me use that one philosophy class that I took my freshman year of college, so that was cool. I think it has some interesting things to say in there, and I think it's really well done. The battle system is super cool, and once you get the hang of it, the battle system is like really fun, and I really like how you can go out, and it has the same calendar system as Persona and everything there, but then you're kind of going out and there's more, I guess, side content that you can do, more quests that you can take on, more dungeon crawling. It's more dungeon crawly than you would see as far as something like a Persona, where you have like the mementos, you have the Tartarus, but those are part of the main story, where it's like, oh, here's a side quest you can do. It'll help raise your social stats, and it'll also kind of get you money, equipment, stuff like that. And that stuff's really good. I like that stuff a lot. There's some good stuff there. Interesting. I'm interested to see if where they go with the series. I know it sold pretty well for Atlas and Sega standards, especially with a new series like this. I think it sold like 1 million in the first day, which is amazing. And I'm sure they'll do more. I'm wondering if the series is called Metaphor or if the series is called ReFantazio. Like, will we get a game called Metaphor something else, or will we get a game called, like, Analogy ReFantazio, Simile ReFantazio? I'm going to guess the series is called Metaphor. I think that's a good name for a series. So I'd be interested to see where they go with it, if it's another kind of Final Fantasy thing. This feels like if you are not happy that Final Fantasy is no longer turn-based and you didn't play this game, like, you're out of your mind. You got to go play this game. One of the best JRPGs in years. I mean, probably the best original JRPG in God knows how long. And that's not to say anything. I mean, a lot of games are original, even if they're owned in a, you know, a long-lasting series. Like, I think of Persona 4 is much different than Persona 5 in a lot of ways. So, not that I'm saying it like that, but as far as a new franchise, new IP, very interesting. Don't need, you know, you're not saddled down by Shin Megami Tensei. You're not saddled down by Persona. If you've never played those games, you can jump right in, and I think you'll like it. Highly recommended. Really good. The class system, it's so good. The class system and leveling up classes and then skill inheritance and everything is awesome. It's very rewarding and it has a great loop and a great cycle there, and so much fun. Interesting too, there's some strange connections, without spoilers, without going into it too much. There's some interesting connections to other Atlas titles, and I'm wondering if that means more for the future or not, but I won't say anything else. Excellent game. I could see a year where this was Game of the Year, honestly. And I could see it in the future once, you know, I beat the game like I think 2 weeks ago now. I could see it in the future once I'm removed from this game and I think about it more. I'm like, man, that probably was Game of the Year. But right now I'm like, man, you didn't end. You took a lot of time, kind of overstayed your welcome, you know. So, I don't know. But still an excellent, fantastic game. And easily one of the best of the year. Another game that was very long, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. What they're doing with this Rebirth series is amazing. I am very impressed with it. And where I think Final Fantasy VII Remake was, at times, I think there were swaths of that game that were kind of boring, kind of padded out. I think this game is consistently just great all the way through. I think that it is too big, in that there is some side content that they introduced that didn't need to be there. They could have gone without it, and it kind of bloats the game to a huge level. I mean, the game is on 2 discs, so I mean, yeah, but it kind of bloats the game to like a pretty massive level. But what you have here is a very interesting. And I don't want to talk too much about what this is, because it's not just like a plain remake of Final Fantasy VII, but I don't want to, you know, spoil the first game or this one, but what they're doing there is super interesting, and the way that they're telling the story in an extremely AAA, extremely high quality, high budget way is like, this is awesome. This is so cool. Final Fantasy VII is such a rich and awesome full world, with great characters, a great, you know, lore. So to have it kind of fully realized, about as AAA as you can get for something this big, is so good. They really knocked it out of the park with this game. Square Enix absolutely killed it with this one. And I mean, really only complaint I have with this game is that resolution-wise on PS5, it's a bit... So I played it in the performance 60 FPS mode, and the resolution is not great. And it got patched over the time I was playing. It took me like a month to finish. Another game that took me like 60 hours or whatever, and I didn't do all the side content in this one, or it would have probably taken me much longer. But another game that it's... I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I didn't do all the side content, but I played it. It took me over an hour, a month. I'm getting back on track. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. So the resolution kept getting patched over time, but it was rough. Like day one, it was like, ooh, this looks like someone smeared Vaseline on my TV screen. But I mean, I'm not going to play this game in the fidelity mode, because 30 FPS for something like this just doesn't cut it. Like, I just, no thank you. It was very choppy. And it starts the game out actually in 30 FPS, and it's very like, ooh, And I've never been too much of a frame rate snob. I mean, I play a lot of retro and older games, and 30 FPS is fine for most of that stuff. But something like this, I don't want to play an action game, fast-paced action RPG like that in 30 FPS. No, no, no. But everything I've seen of this game now on PS5 Pro, which I didn't get, don't plan on getting one. Just not really very. I don't think the price point is worth what you're getting there. But maybe it'll prove me wrong in the future. I'm not against it completely. I never got a PS4 Pro either, so I'm probably on the side of not getting one, just sticking to PS5. But everything I've seen with this game on PS5 Pro fixes that resolution problem, and this is probably one of the best looking games of all time. And when you see like the pre-rendered CGI cutscenes and the pre-rendered one, especially at the end, I'm like, holy crap, this looks incredible. Like, this looks so good. So visual fidelity is great. The combat is super fun. The new characters that you get, obviously, not new as in these are the characters from the game, but you didn't have them in Remake, but you get them in Rebirth. They join your party. I think they're all fun and unique to play as. Like, this is a very, very well done game. And there's some spots that aren't amazing, but overall, I'd say that it starts strong, ends strong, sets up for a third game in the Remake series perfectly. And that's one of those games where I'm like, all right, let's get that out, right, guys? Hopefully soon. Hopefully, like, I'm guessing probably, 2028, 2029, somewhere around there. So I can't believe that with COVID existing as well, Final Fantasy VII Remake came out in 2020. This came out 2024. Like, and this is a massive game. So with, COVID and everything being in the way a little bit during 2020, 2021, I'm surprised that they were able to get this out so fast. I know they're just saying they're not working on DLC, so hopefully soon. But without going into spoilers, the story is amazing, and I just can't wait to see what's next for that one. But so number 2, this is the only game here that I have not finished. I'm gonna finish it soon, unless this game absolutely takes a huge dump, which I very highly doubt. This is number 2. But if this game does somehow take a huge dump, I will be in the comments saying took a big dump. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the only non-PlayStation game on here. I was actually debating, like, I know this is coming out, the first part of the year on PS5. Do I want to just have it on there and get the trophies? But I was like, no, I really want to play this game. It looks awesome. I've been a believer in this game since the beginning. And I like playing on Xbox Series X. I actually think it's a really nice system. I just don't have a whole ton of reasons to play on it right now. So mostly on PS5. But I was always a believer in this game. I know people were skeptical, and I was always like, Machine Games makes good games. I've not played the Wolfenstein games. I started the first one because I wanted to get familiar with that series. I've heard they're great, but I got filtered by the intro because I just didn't like it. And I've heard everyone who's ever talked about that game has said, oh, that game starts out so bad, but then it gets so good. I wonder, so I got to get back to it at some point. But I like how Machine Games has just this, right now, trilogy of games about killing Nazis. I think that's awesome. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is... I don't remember who said this recently, but during coverage of this game, I really liked the idea that people were saying, like, Tomb Raider and Uncharted, those are like if you turned a movie into, or if you turned a video game that was like a movie. And this is like, yeah, this is a movie IP perfectly adapted into a video game. It's so clever how they were able to take, this IP, and they could have just made an Uncharted clone with Indiana Jones, and I think it would have done well. But they went the extra mile to make a really excellent game. They went the extra mile to make something that is just fantastic for the IP, fantastic just in general, even if you're not a fan of the IP. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Indiana Jones. Most people had that obsession with Star Wars, but I was like, nah, I'm into Indiana Jones. This is way better. And I liked Star Wars as a kid, but this was always my favorite by far. And, the original trilogy is great. The fourth one's stupid, whatever. I feel like the fifth one gets hate. I liked the fifth one. It gets some hate, I think, because Disney's an easy target to hate, obviously. But also, I understand why people wouldn't want to see 80-year-old Indiana Jones go on an adventure. But if most people who say that movie sucks have not watched it. It's very enjoyable. It's good. I like it a lot. Cast is good. But something like this is like the perfect place for this franchise to be, because it's like, all right, Harrison Ford is elderly now. We don't want to recast Indiana Jones in the movies, but there's plenty of space to fill in. I mean, there is plenty of adventures we could cover in the Indiana Jones lore, where we could kind of come in here and say, oh, this is just an adventure that happened in 1937 or whatever. This is an adventure that he did in 1940, you know? There's plenty of space that you can just come in and just make a cool game. Troy Baker, he's probably the most prolific video game voice actor at this point. Plays Indiana Jones, and he plays it perfectly. Like, it's very impressive how close it sounds to like a young Harrison Ford. They did a fantastic job with that. So it's really one of those things where, like, this is completely believable. Visually, this is one of the most impressive games I've ever seen. Like, the in-engine cutscenes look like incredible. They really do actually look like a movie. Like, they're very well, directed. They're very well, animated. Everything about it is very good. So they really truly do look like a movie, which I think is very cool. And I know people have been saying, oh, it looks like a movie since like PS2. But this is the first time I've ever really been like, this is believable. And it's crazy that this is in engine too. I mean, these are not, pre-rendered or anything. So I'm very impressed with this one. The gameplay is really great. I know people were skeptical with it being first person, but I was like, no, I like how this sets apart Indiana Jones from something like Tomb Raider or something like Uncharted. I think that's a really clever way of looking at it and clever way of going about it. And I also just really like how it's gameplay is unique. It's not open world. I know some people are comparing it to like an immersive sim. I don't know if it's quite an immersive sim. I wouldn't say it's that hardcore, but I would say that it is like an immersive adventure game. It almost is like a kind of like almost like a Metroid Prime-ish type, where it's very kind of like that, where you get an open-ended area, you get a few different open-ended areas that you get to explore. Metroid Prime doesn't really have like the side quests and stuff, but there's a lot of secrets to uncover, a lot of different abilities and things that you can gain that'll get you to different areas. It's very cleverly designed. The map design is fantastic and very rewarding to explore. The side content, don't skip the side content because there's some great stuff here. I'm in probably the last third of the game, but the side content I've experienced so far has been very good. And just going around exploring, looking for treasures and stuff. The upgrade system is really good. The different, things that you can do there are fun. The combat is one of not the highlight. It's not bad, but something interesting with it is a lot of it is like there's some social stealth aspects of it where it's like, okay, if I'm going to go into this Nazi camp or this fascist camp or whatever, I got to be dressed like them. Because if I go in there just by myself and try sneaking around, I get caught. They're going to just pump me through full of bullets. So I got to find the Nazi uniform or whatever and sneak in wearing that. But some of the generals will notice like, hey, I don't know who that is. And they'll kind of come up and then they'll discover you and then they go after you. That's really clever and that's really fun. And it's very rewarding to kind of just sneak around that way rather than I'm trying to stealth it. And there's some stealth sections of the game. I think it's a little strange. The game does try to put you almost immediately into like a stealth section after the intro. And they're kind of like, okay, this is how you move the body so you can hide the body of someone that you knocked out or whatever. And you don't ever really need to do that. I think this game is at its best when it's like, all right, I'm going to stealth a few guys. Oops, I got caught. I got to improvise and take some guy out. Take this guy out this way. And you have guns and stuff, but you're really disincentivized by using them just in the fact that one gunshot goes off and then everyone around you is alerted that something's up and they'll start coming at you and you're pretty much done. But it does something really cool where you can actually take the gun and press the X button and just turn it into a melee weapon and start beating people with it. So it's like, oh, I ran out of bullets, so I'm just going to beat this guy with the gun now. It's fantastic. It's good. I would say that the AI of the enemy characters, and I'm playing on like normal difficulty, so maybe it's better on higher difficulties, but the AI I would say is a bit dumb. It's not great. You can probably just write that off as saying that Nazis are just dumb and cringe, but I don't know if that was an intentional thing or not. There are different parts of the game where they're like, yeah, we're only able to do this because the Nazis are very dumb, which I appreciate. But this is an excellent game. Machine Games knocked it out of the park. They did a great job with this one. And if you have an Xbox PC, play it. I know probably most of my viewers are on PS5. So I would definitely pick this one up when it comes to PS5, but I recommend this one. This is easily one of the best games of the year. One of the best games I've played in a while. As far as like gaming IP, obviously Indiana Jones is not a new IP, but as far as like a gaming IP, this is one of the best the Machine Games Indiana Jones is one of the best most promising new IPs out there right now. And I highly recommend it. Hopefully this does well. I think it's doing pretty well. Microsoft is weird because obviously a lot of their metrics are different than someone like PlayStation, where this is on Game Pass day one. I don't care to subscribe to Game Pass. I'd rather own the game. Even if this game for the most part is just kind of opening up a download, I'd rather have the copy than just play it on Game Pass and rent it. I'd rather be able to just anytime I want to install it rather than have to perpetually be subscribed to Game Pass. But so you never know. I think it's selling pretty well though, and I think, who knows, I mean, Disney is pretty onerous with their licensing fees, and obviously something like Star Wars or Spider-Man, those have high licensing fees, but those are also far more important IP to Disney than something like Indiana Jones. So hopefully this is worth everyone's time to pursue in the future. And we'll see how it sells on PS5 as well. There's rumors that they're already working on another one, which I would hope so, because this is great. This is very promising and very great, and I'm looking forward to finishing up. This might actually be my first 100,000 gamer score game. I might try to just 100% it because I'm having such a fun time with it. But highly, highly recommended. Hoping that we see more games like this. And congrats to Xbox, they got a game. All right, it's time for the game of the year. Probably not a surprise. You're probably wondering on my list where this one would be. I'm kind of shocked to say that this is game of the year for me. I never was a complete like doubter of this one. Obviously, Bloober Team has a pretty spotty track record. I don't think anyone will deny that. But they have a pretty spotty track record, and so coming out, and Konami, who also for the last 10 years has pretty much been a punching bag and nothing in the gaming space anymore, saying, oh, okay, we hired these guys who are known for making middling at best horror games to remake probably one of our most important games we've ever published and make a absolute classic and one of the greatest games of all time. We're remaking it with this team, and everyone's like, oh no, like what is this going to be? Silent Hill's been in the gutter. There's whatever that Silent Hill Ascension and the short message like disaster. So I think people had low expectations, but when I first saw the gameplay, I was like, this looks a little rough around the edges, but it's still early. I think like 2 years ago they announced it, and I kind of felt like these guys always say like Silent Hill 2 is like their game. That's what makes them want to make horror games, and Bloober's a primarily horror studio. So like they're not going to, they have to have some understanding. Like they're not going to come out and mess this up. Like this is a big deal. If you mess this up, like you're kind of done for. And as they showed more and more, I became more confident in it, and I was like, I think this is going to be good. I don't think that this is going to be, I don't think I expected it to be as good as it was, but I was like, I think this is going to be good. But what they finally came out with was very far beyond my expectations of how good it was. And Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, the original. I think it's excellent. And this is I say this as a great reinterpretation of it. I mean, it still follows the story beat for beat. It's not like this is a metaverse version of Silent Hill. That would make me kill myself. But Silent Hill 2 original is kind of like you are watching this happen to someone. Like you are watching this, and you have like the camera angles and the everything that it's like you are watching this happen to somebody. You are controlling it, but you are not the one in here. Where this is a more immersive experience of like, yeah, this is far more immersive. The over the shoulder gameplay makes it far more immersive, and you are the one here in Silent Hill, and I think that's awesome. They had a lot of spaces that they could have messed up pretty bad with this one, and they were able to do it. I think some of the subject matter that they could have easily messed up just based off of how the people talk about some of their older games, I think that they were able to handle well. They were able to handle add set pieces that didn't feel tacky but actually felt like, wow, that was a great horror set piece that makes sense, that's not action-packed or over the top, but it is still very well done. Obviously, combat is a point of contention on this one. Obviously, it's very clearly better than the original game's combat, but it's not very fair to compare a 23-year-old game on the PS2 to this. But I like the combat. It does make you. It's realistic to the situation of you are a normal guy who's in here, and you got these horrible creatures coming up to you. You're going to take the crowbar. You're going to take whatever you have and just hit them to it until you see them stop moving. And there's some dodging to it, which I think people think that's a little too actiony. But I wouldn't say that you're not doing like a Devil May Cry dodge or like a Dark Souls dodge roll or something. Like it's kind of I'm got to move out of the way. I'm going to hit this thing. So I like the combat a lot, and I think it works for the game. It's not perfect, but I think it works pretty well. And just the environmental design is some of the best I've ever seen in a game. It is so immaculate, so well done, and just exploring the world is so fantastic. And I just think that they nailed it. And I want to see Bloober do more with Silent Hill now. I would love to see them, go all the way. Remake 1. I think all the original Silent Hills are still worth playing, their original versions, but I want to see their interpretation of it now and see this more, graphically impressive, because this game's very graphically impressive. I want to see this more graphically impressive iteration of the series and how things, could look in a more realistic environment. I think that's awesome. And 1, I think, has the atmosphere. It would be so cool to see that. 1 and 3 especially. It's like remake the classic ones and then give them a Silent Hill 5, just call it Silent Hill 5 and we can just ignore Homecoming and Downpour and everything. Remake the classic ones and let's see how it goes. They've earned my trust with this series, and so let's have them practice before they make a new one, but I'm all in for whatever they come up with next on this one. And they announced a new horror IP, and at least it looks cool. So I'm not going to pre-order. Probably not going to be a day one buy. I'll probably wait for reviews. But these guys maybe are on an upward trend, and I think that's awesome. Polish studio, kind of growing and getting bigger, and they got a hit. They made an absolute gem. So highly recommend this one. 2024 is a great year for games overall. All right, then. So that is the end of the video for my best of 2024. Gotta say, very good year. I cannot complain with the quality of games that came out this year. Some of these games are pretty long. Some of them are, not too lengthy, but still just cannot complain with how... Even if I didn't play a ton of games, I feel like I played a ton of quality games, and I think that's what's great. So, also, once again, just got to say, shout out to Atlas. When you get, a top 7 video where 3 of them games in it are theirs, and then there's stuff like I didn't play Unicorn Overlord, I didn't play, a lot of Switch games. I didn't play too much on the Switch this year. It's kind of, it's last year. There's not a whole ton out at this point. But I didn't play a lot of the Switch games, so I'm kind of waiting for Switch 2 for some of the big ones. So, shout out. Great year for games. Great games. If you are not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe. If you liked this video, leave a like. It always helps out the channel. Leave a comment down below with what you think of my picks and what your favorite games of the year were. And until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching.